If you've ever wondered what it would be like to see from the pure, unfiltered perspective of a sadistic, murderous serial killer, there's certainly a few movies out there that could potentially fill that void, but few of them cover that sick and twisted world quite like the trilogy presented by Toe Tag Productions. A raw, disgusting insight into the world of people who get their kicks by committing unspeakable acts onto poor innocent people who certainly don't deserve the fate that they're given. The August Underground movies are presented in a very realistic and disturbing way, in an attempt to create a realistic looking fake snuff film, all filmed from the perspective of the killers. Like what you'd expect from a snuff film, there's no story, there's no rhyme or reason, just simply a display of truly disturbing content being played from a video camera scene by scene. With that being said, August Underground has obtained its infamy due to its incredibly realistic and uncomfortable nature. So don't watch this one with your nan. And this goes without saying really, but due to the contents within this movie, unfortunately, a lot of this video will need to be censored and it's probably going to be age restricted. The movie begins with us seeing two friends joking around together and having a beer, before they then head down into a basement and were greeted to the sight of a naked captive woman covered in blood, in a filthy, rancid room which has its walls covered in pictures of naked women. This movie wastes no time. The pair don't appear to have the normal, expected reaction of seeing such a thing. They're laughing and joking around while being visibly and audibly excited about this. The guy filming gets a close-up shot of the woman's breasts, where we can see that one of her nipples have been sliced off by the other man. It appears that the pair are having the time of their lives, as they're degrading, mocking and traumatizing this woman, having a big old laugh between themselves. After terrifying the woman for a bit, they head into a nearby bathroom, where we see they have another victim, a dead male in a blood-soaked bathtub with his genitals removed. Upon seeing this, the cameraman begins to hysterically laugh, as if this is one of the most funny things he's ever encountered in his life. They then head back to the captive woman, who appears to have been held here for quite some time, and they begin to torment her by placing food in front of her mouth, but dropping it to the filth-ridden floor before she is able to have any of it. They then decide that they're done defiling corpses and tormenting naked captive women, and casually walk away from the basement to go and get a beer, as if this is just an everyday normal activity for these guys. I think what's just occurred is a pretty clear indication as to what type of people these two are. It then cuts to the pair driving through the night. We see them pick up a hitchhiking woman off the side of the road, and given the events of the previous scene, we know that nothing good is bound to happen here. They then start persuading the woman to remove pieces of her clothes to expose herself for cash. While hesitant at first, she does end up showing them. Probably something to do with the fact that I can imagine it'd be pretty terrifying to say no to these two random weirdos while you're out in the middle of nowhere. They then proposition her to commit a sexual act, and given the fact that she can't really say no, she agrees. But during the event, the man changes his behavior rather quickly and begins to violently beat the woman unconscious, with the cameraman then walking up to her body to get a closer view of the aftermath, where they then decide to get back in their car and leave the woman for dead way out in the middle of nowhere. We see the men back in their basement from earlier, with the beaten and bloody woman along with the dead man in the bathtub. The cameraman is doing his usual taunting to the woman. He's saying twisted things to her while touching her exposed body, before getting the disturbing idea to pick up pieces of her own excrement and directly rub it into her exposed wounds and her face. While he's having fun doing that, we can hear sawing noises coming off camera. It's what sounds to be somebody cutting through a piece of wood. That is until the cameraman pans over to the bathroom, where we see the other man crudely chopping up a corpse with a saw as the pair casually discuss what they plan to do that night. After the man has been severed into pieces, they decide to play with the woman some more by removing the toe from the deceased man, forcing it into the woman's mouth, and then taping her mouth shut with the toe still inside. You know, fun stuff. The pair then attend a live show of a band that are performing some Korn covers, and after a while, a fight breaks out in the mosh pit, with it eventually spilling outside onto the street. But nothing really comes of it, as a bouncer restrains one of the men, forcing him away from the group of other people, with him then proceeding to follow the two men for a couple of minutes. It seems like it's setting up a perfect opportunity for them to get another victim. It's late at night with no one around, and he's following them, which is starting to annoy them. I'm sure they've killed for less, but apparently not, and they just leave. further emphasizing the fact that all of these scenes are supposed to be this guy's random home videos. They're not just filming all of their crimes, they're just filming their lives. It then cuts back to the men in the basement, where they make the discovery that the woman who they've been holding captive has died. The pair, for whatever reason, then decide to take a little road trip and head up to New Jersey, where one of the men is originally from. They go to a few different places on their road trip, but one of the places which is kind of fitting for these two is a slaughterhouse that one of their friends works at. They get a tour of the facility, where they're shown various different pieces of machinery, while the friend who works there explains to them how everything is done. Not exactly the most exciting place to go and visit, but I guess if you're like these two guys, then it would be rather enjoyable. Throughout the whole duration of the road trip, they haven't hurt or killed anybody. They've just visited a few different locations so far, which is rather disturbing in its own right. They're out visiting places that families and kids go to, and all the while, nobody understands that they're just standing a matter of feet away from sadistic murderers. The whole not hurting or killing anybody part is about to change. They spot an old woman returning home with some groceries. One of the men approaches her, while one of them stays back to film. He then proceeds to ask the old lady if he can help her with her shopping before being let into her home. And this is going exactly where you think it's going. A few minutes later, the cameraman enters the property to find his friend on top of the already dead woman as he's stabbed and beaten her to death. Completely unfazed by this, the pair begin to laugh and joke around about the crime they've just committed, before the cameraman begins to raid the old woman's fridge in search of beer. He turns around to see that his friend has forcibly removed the woman's dentures and is playing around with them, being silly, as if they're not something he's just pulled from the mouth of an old woman that he's just murdered. You'd think that after committing such a bold and brazen crime in the middle of the day, the pair would perhaps think it's best to lay low for a while and not bring any attention to themselves. You'd be wrong, as we see them terrorizing a gas station as they're running around, eating food and getting chased by the store owner, before leaving and entering a few times to mess with the clerk. Until one final time, where they decide to enter the store, stab the owner, rob the cash register, and then terrorize all of the people who are left inside. They force a poor couple to do degrading things to each other before violently assaulting both of them and getting into a police chase. Presumably, they're not caught for this incredibly violent act, as it then cuts to the pair visiting a comic book stroke tattoo shop, where they're messing around and talking with the twin brother owners as one of them is getting their leg tattooed. On the surface, it might seem as if they're friends with these guys, but either they're faking it or they don't really care about friends, as it then cuts to them in a basement with two captive men, the twin brothers. One of the men is lying on the floor dead, with one of his legs brutally disfigured, and the other one is unconscious and restrained to a chair. After waking the man up, terrifying him and forcing him to stare at his dead brother right in front of him, they want to know if it's true, and do twins really have some sort of telepathic bond? He wants to know, did he feel it when his brother's leg was getting cut off? Then he asks him, can you feel this? Before proceeding to cave in his dead brother's skull with a hammer as he's forced to watch it right in front of him as it's happening. Before ending it off with having the surviving brother explain to the camera what the men have done to them before he also gets his head caved in with a hammer. We then see the pair back upstairs but partying with two women, because I guess after committing a murderous rampage, you've got to blow off steam somehow. They're dancing with the women for a while, and things begin to escalate to the point of the cameraman taking one of the women upstairs. And after they're done up there, they return downstairs to notice that the other two aren't there. Immediately, the viewer and the cameraman know exactly what's going on, with it being confirmed with the cameraman taking the woman downstairs, where she sees the man performing sexual acts on her dead friend while he's bashing her over the head with a hammer. Rather smartly, the woman takes off and leaves the house running, shortly followed by the two men giving chase, and then it ends. Presumably with them catching up to the woman and subjecting her to the same fate as her friend. And that's the end of this pair's murderous rampage. Well, at least for now. You might have noticed with August Underground that there's very little to no cohesion tying each scene together, and that's a deliberate choice. Like I stated at the beginning of this video, this movie is a raw, unfiltered look into the lives of two sadistic serial killers. They enjoy documenting their experiences, and that's exactly what you're getting. It's as if someone's discovered the tapes, made copies of them, and that's what you're getting now. It's not a movie, it's a real set of events. A stylistic and deliberate choice which greatly helps with the whole fake snuff approach, and a decision which would have undoubtedly had people back in the day scratching their heads and questioning if they've really just witnessed two maniacs record a murder spree for real. And another quite unsettling revelation about all of this is that there's nothing special about these two men. On the surface, there's absolutely no indication that they're serial killers. They see live music, they take road trips, they visit attractions and hang out with friends, joking and laughing together. All of the ordinary people that would have encountered this pair would have had no idea as to what they were really capable of. Whereas we've seen them commit some truly unspeakable acts, carrying the exact same attitude that they had when doing seemingly normal things. August Underground is a shock movie through and through. That's all it's attempting to be, and it is completely unapologetic in its attempts at doing so. And sometimes, that's all that a movie needs to be. Before we wrap things up, I'd like to give a big thank you to my patrons. Thank you to Dom, Bort, Hunters263, Caleb Barnaby, Rebecca Pitts, Total Drama Rebooted, Jakey, Benji, Martin Brannon, Natasha Twyman, Rin and Whiskey, Jarrett C. Bees, and Nicholas. The fact that there are people out there who are willing to financially support the channel is incredibly inspiring, especially when I cover movies like this, where chances of it getting any ad revenue are pretty slim to none. So thank you so much for supporting. I appreciate your help more than you could ever imagine. The channel's also got a Discord server, so if you'd like to discuss this movie, or other movies in general with like-minded people, there's a place where you can come together and do just that. And if you'd like to leave a recommendation for the series, that'd be the best place to do it. So once again, thank you to my patrons, and thank you to everyone else for watching.